This episode's guest, Bindiya Murgai, found her purpose in life helping others resolve their inner conflicts. As a counselor, mental fitness, and digital wellness coach, she has dedicated all her considerable energy to helping people like you and me overcome their personal challenges. Bindiya has a deep, abiding passion for the betterment of mental health in India and has been raising awareness about the impact that technology has on our emotional well being. She put her talents into practice, volunteering with NGOs, including those run by her parents for animal crusades and cancer aid. These experiences took her on a spiritual journey to Bhutan, Ladakh, Spiti, and Dharamshala, among various other locations steeped in Buddhism and other forms of spirituality. She spent time at close proximity with Buddhist lamas, imbibing mindfulness, meditative practices, bettering herself through her introspection in art of awareness and compassion. It's this compassion and awareness that makes her truly unstoppable. Welcome, Bindia.
Thanks so much, Shailja. So good being here.
So, Bindia, could you tell us a little bit about yourself? Our listeners would really want to know. We've seen so much you're doing in space of mindfulness, meditation, digital detox. It's very, very exciting and fascinating, honestly, because last 2 years, it's all about being technology, or we can't exist without technology now. So tell us about yourself. You're also not in the main city, in metros and towns like most of us.
Oh, no, I'm not. In fact, I stay near Uti in the Nilgiris, and I'm essentially a mental fitness, digital wellness, and mindfulness coach. And I also, basically work as a speaker in the field of mental fitness, and I write often for different publications. And my work really entails, as a life coach and a therapist, it involves working with clients from different walks of life, be it students or professionals, homemakers, to enhance their mental fitness, to help them overcome issues like depression, relationship hurdles, or personal challenges, professional challenges, even, or sometimes it's grief and stress, anxiety related, or improving self esteem, confidence, body related issues, and so on. So it's really a whole gamut of stuff. And I also do retreats and webinars and workshops on, again, a lot of mental fitness and self development topics. And of course, of late in the past year and a half, too, there's been a lot of talk about pandemic related anxiety, people not finding a balance between working from home, insecurity, which is leading to depression and so on. So I've been doing a lot of work on that as well post pandemic. And of course, then, like I was saying, all the other stuff like your communication skills, how to become more resilient, how to become a more fulfilled, happier person, how to cultivate emotional hygiene, which is something which I'm really, really very passionate about promoting. And how to also, very importantly, like you started the conversation, touching upon the topic of digital detox and wellness, that how do we find a balance with technology and how do we use tools like meditation and mindfulness in our daily life to improve our overall sense of well-being. So that is, sort of what I do. And I'm also working right now on my first book on mental fitness in daily
Oh,
life
how
and a
wonderful.
YouTube series.
So, when is that coming out?
Well, it's a struggle working on a book because you write and rewrite and you're never happy enough. But I'm hoping in the coming year, maybe I'd have the first draft ready sometime by mid next year. And apart from that, given where I'm staying, I like to consider myself a part-time farmer. I live in a little village, little organic village near Uti, and we grow many of our own vegetables and we harvest our own honey. And every day is a learning. I'm learning from the land, I'm learning from nature. So I'm trying to keep a nice, fine balance between learning from the earth, giving back where you can, and also working in the whole field.
This is very interesting, Bindya. Take us through one day in your life, from the time you wake up till the time you hit the sack again. Very interested. How do you go about it?
I don't wake up terribly early. Generally, I start my day at about 7 in the morning. And the beginning of it is with some, usually we like to play some either Buddhist chants or some nice Hindustani classical music for a while as we have our tea. My husband and I live here together. And then that's followed by at least 30 minutes of meditation, then 30 minutes of yoga. And then I spend time till about 9:30 with some farming, just outside in the fields, seeing what's happening there between the garden and the farm. And then from 10 o'clock onwards is when my online sessions begin. And then the day is pretty packed all the way till 6:30. And in between, I take a lunch break. The lunch break again is like eat and then go out and see what's happening again in the outdoors and what needs to be done. And I try to keep at least one full day, so at least a full Sunday I try to keep where it's just dedicated to the outdoors, spending time outside, really taking stock of what's happening outside. Like I said, learning from the land, because I've spent all my time, most of my life actually being in a city. So this learning is something which is a steep curve for me and is happening as we go along. And then in the evenings, once, the work day is over and you're done with the outside, then you either meet up with some friends or you spend time together. Like my husband and I spend some time together. You do a little bit of catching up, you do a little bit of cooking, which is only fun to do in the evenings. I don't like to put that in the day because I like to do it as an unwinding activity. And then before you know it, the day is already over, and then you're ready for the next one. So it's just a gentle cycle that goes on like that.
Bindia, you mentioned that you moved from city life to where you are right now, right? What made you move away from city life? I mean, this is something which we read in books, watch in movies, and even, kind of fantasize that one day we'll do that. We are still stuck in this
Yeah.
balance of corporate life, and I'm talking about myself as well, right? I just being a mindfulness trainer myself, I'm juggling between a corporate life and pursuing my passion. But you've done that. You've gone ahead and taken that decision a decade ago. To tell us, how it started for you. How did you firm up your mind about this decision?
I think for me specifically, it was something that I wanted to do right from my 20s, like my big life goal where other people wanted to kind of become VPs or presidents or CEOs of places and so on. My big life goal was actually to move out and go to the mountains. But initially, the mountain plan was more like going towards the Himalayas because that's where I'd spent a lot of time. I have a lot of connects there. Of course, it's a beautiful part of the country as well. So it was always that, by the time I'm 30, that's what I'd be able to do. But it didn't quite pan out like that. But the goal just got pushed forward. It never got pushed away. So I was also very fortunate that for me, my partner and I both had a common goal, because sometimes if one person wants to do it and the other one doesn't, it becomes quite an issue. But since we both wanted to do it, and it was just a chance visit that we came to the Nilgiris and figured that, wow, this is just such a lovely part of the world. And unlike many places in the north where the connectivity is really poor in terms of both, road connectivity, air connectivity, internet, and so on, this place has all of those elements very well integrated. So it seemed like just the right place. And in our head, we had already spent so much time, like, just doing the regular stuff in the city. We were running our own production house, which was a very, very hectic job. I'd been in television ever since I started my career at 20. So I think the time was just right for us. We wanted a gentler pace. We wanted to upgrade our life, not in terms of just what's there in the bank and the balance of money and so on, but we wanted to actually have an upgrade in the quality of life, starting from just something as basic as the air that you breathe, the weather that you live in, how close you are to nature, and what is your day to day, how are the bits and pieces of that quality coming together. So I think we chose quality over, a lot of the material stuff, so to say, and it just aligned really well with who we are. And a lot of people fantasize about it, but when they come here day 2, day 3, they're like, okay, now what else is there to do? By day 5, are there any malls? By day 7, it's like, I'm leaving. When is the next flight out?
Yeah.
So it's not for everybody, because it can also be really quiet. You have to be very comfortable with your own self to be able to make that shift. But it happens so, so naturally and so easily for us that when we came for a year and a half, I just refused to leave and even go back to the city because I was so happy that I didn't want to step out at
Yeah.
all.
In fact, now that you're talking about it, if you remember that, we met at Habitat Center,
Right.
and there was something which you guys had organized, and your production house was also involved in it.
Right. Monk from Comic, I think you're talking about that film.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. And I saw it coming up in there. And I'm not kidding. When I
Really?
interacted with you, yeah, that day I'm like, this girl is not,
I'm
she
gonna
doesn't
stay
belong
here.
here.
Well, and how right you were. I think I spent more time than I wanted to, but anyway, it happened at the perfect time. I think the head and heart and everything was aligned just perfectly. So, I mean, we just, although it was a long term goal, we decided within 3 months that, okay, that's it. The time's come. In 3 months, we handed over the company to some of our long term employees, and we came here, found a place, packed our bags, and just in 3 months we were out. So it just happened like that. Yeah, it was.
No, I guess, like you said, it's just the goal got pushed further, but you were always walking towards that.
That's right. Yeah.
And what about you did go for these short stays to Bhutan, Ladakh, Spiti, and Dharamshala. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, Bhutan is both. It wasn't so much. Dharamshala is where I actually started going when I first was around about 17, and that's what really deepened my interest in Buddhism. But then soon after, I think I got a bit disappointed, or maybe perhaps a little disillusioned with how commercial Dharamshala had become, and how everybody was really just chasing, spirituality as a commodity more than something that they wanted to embrace. And then there was a chance discovery of Spiti, where we just had hit the road and we just wanted to go to some place. We didn't realize it was winter. And at that time, Spiti was so poorly connected that it was literally like shut for about 6 months in the winter. There was no proper road connectivity. But we ended up over there late October when it was completely snowed out. And there was just a magical connection that happened with Spiti, with the people, with the monasteries, and it just became like a soul center. And I used to also go a lot to Bhutan. In fact, I think I started going to Bhutan way earlier than Spiti and way before it became a trendy destination for anyone, which I think was all the way back in perhaps the mid 90s. And, again, the draw of these two places was that they were so deeply rooted in their spirituality and in the Buddhist culture. And that is what kept drawing me back. And then over a period of time, I started doing retreats over there with people. So I did a lot of personal retreats for myself as part of my own development. And then I started doing retreats where I would actually take people there for meditation retreats and have those over there. And then also we got very involved, and we continue to be very involved closely with the locals in Spiti. We work very closely with the monasteries there.
Sure. Was it in Bhutan that you decided to start healing Hideaway, or it was later?
No, see, earlier when I started out with the retreats, they were called Blue Mango in the Himalayas. And those were the retreats that used to happen, both in Bhutan and in Spiti. So Healing Hideaway was actually Blue Mango in the Himalayas changed to Healing Hideaway when the Nilgiris happened, because it could no longer be in the Himalayas. It was now in the Nilgiris. And also, I think in for me also there was a transition from being someone who was doing my therapy part time, because I was also running the production house while I was in Delhi. So I was doing my therapy for in the evening, like it would be 4 to 9:30 would be my sessions. But as we moved here, this is what I started doing full time. And the name came from the very fact that it's such a, the way this place is, it's sort of like cocooned from all the harshness of what we experience in a city in day to day life elsewhere. And when you come here, it's like a little small corner where you're going to heal. You're going to kind of hide from day to day stuff, and you're just going to be there in your private space to heal and look inwards and promote your own inner growth, so to say. So, Healing Hideaway was really something that happened around that time when we moved to the Nilgiris.
But when did you start meditating, Bindya? Was it like early in your teens that you chanced upon it, or it was just a happening?
When I started meditating, it was actually quite a stressful and frustrating experience for me, because I think the first time, I mean, for most people, they just seem to slip into meditation and it seems like they're levitating and having such a good, easy time with it. But for me, it was really, really a struggle. I started out, I think the first few times when I tried was maybe when I was in my early 20s. This was like way back, and it was a very frustrating experience because every time I went for any meditation session, there were all these calm looking people sitting in their lovely, pajama kurtas and looking so serene and lost in their own world. And there I was struggling with it. Like my mind was just racing all over the place, and all I could think of each time was like, why am I not getting it? Like, what's wrong? How come they do it so easily? And there was so much pressure on my own self that I managed to put to somehow slip into this state of meditative bliss that it just won't happen. But I think also what happened was, which I realized over a period of time, was that everybody was trying to do just one technique to introduce you and break you into the practice of meditation, which was that you sit down, you sit cross legged, you control your breath, you focus on your breath, which is wonderful. I mean, I still do that. But I think there is not one technique that should be applicable for everybody, because everyone's minds are so different. The mind space you come in is so different. Maybe you have a much, much, much more restless mind at that point, which I think I did in my early 20s. And that practice was just not working for me. So then, after several attempts, I remember one day just like breaking down in a class and saying, this is not for me. I'm not doing this anymore. And then I took a break for quite a while in between. And then when I went back to it, it was at the Osho Center because I went for a dynamic meditation course over there. And while I was doing that, I realized that, wow, there's another way to do this. There's another way in. And that at the point was the right way in for me, because with all that load of energy and hyperactivity in the mind and all that, that was the technique that worked better for me. And then once I got in through the dynamic meditation, which of course is something that you can't do every day on your own when you're back home, then slowly I started exploring different ways of active meditation practices as well. So whether it involves walking or it involves various different aspects, how you just get into the meditative state. And once I explored all of them through sound, through, like I said, through walking and activity based meditation as well, then I started building more and more on the meditation practice. And even now, when I work with my clients and I work with them on doing, like when I'm doing meditation retreats or courses, I feel that, I work with them not with one technique. Now I have that exposure and that toolkit. So I know what is working for one person and if they need a different route in, and then move on to the practice of noticing your breath.
So, in your retreats, do you combine it with some sort of physical activity or yoga or any pranayams, breathing techniques, or it's mostly focused on mindfulness?
No, so it really depends, because if you're doing a retreat which is meditation and mindfulness retreat, then of course breathing is an integral part. So you can't take away from that. Breathing is layered throughout the practice. But I don't actually teach any yoga because that's not my core expertise. I practice yoga, but I'm not a yoga teacher. So I deal only with training for the mind through meditation and mindfulness in those retreats.
I mean, it's very interesting, because you've had like a very long stint in media and especially production, right? I mean, you were creating content for international channels like Discovery, National Geographic, and that's a time when we met. From then, and now it's a completely different avatar of yours I'm talking to. But I think one thing which you talk about, which really resonates with me a lot, and I'm sure our listeners would love it, is your digital detox. because that's killing us, right? So overbearing at the moment because it's not about one gadget anymore. There are multiple gadgets. So talk about it a little bit.
The thing is, one thing which I very, very firmly believe is that digital wellness is now the fourth pillar of wellness. We can no longer ignore it. So, along with our physical, emotional, mental wellness, we have to actually start mainstreaming the whole idea of digital wellness because technology is all pervasive. There is no hiding from it. There's no running away. Maybe you can, limit the amount of exposure you have, but you just can't be away from technology in this world anymore. And that's fine because technology is a great enabler. It's a great tool. It's not a bad thing per se. Where it goes bad for us or wrong for us really is when we don't know where the balance is. When we just get consumed by technology instead of using technology, we start getting used by the technology instead. So in this world, which is pretty much, an always on world, we're always connected. There's usually a device either in our hand, pocket, or 5 meters or 5 feet, in fact, around us. The whole point of digital detox and digital wellness really is to go to a place where you can actually audit what your digital consumption is. You can understand what that excessive consumption is doing to you, to your brain, to your relationships, to your productivity, to your cognitive functioning, and then find a way, or rather, perhaps learn a way where you can identify what boundaries need to be put, how you can start rolling them out in a way which is effective for you, given whatever your lifestyle may be, and to curtail the over dependence or the addiction that is happening, especially because of smartphones and the internet. Because just a device without any internet or anything loaded like gaming, etc., is not half as harmful as when the internet and the other things are loaded onto the device. So, one thing that I keep wanting to, express all the time where this is concerned is that we must understand that technology today is designed to be addictive. It is designed to constantly have dopamine, which is a feel good neurotransmitter in our brain, to constantly keep pumping that dopamine into our system, which is what makes it addictive because dopamine is the neurotransmitter which is responsible for food cravings, for alcohol, gambling addictions, and so on.
Yeah, Bindya, but just when you're saying about addiction, it just takes me to the time that even since pandemic has hit us, right? It's also about everything is through a laptop. I mean, even my son, who's barely 5 years old, I see him sitting in front of a laptop at 8 in the morning. So it's not addiction as much as a necessity right now.
No, I would disagree to some extent. So, of course, post the pandemic, because work became online, academics became online, social interactions have become online, and so on to such a great extent. So, it's not that you can completely dispense and do away with the gadgets because it's also keeping you connected and fed in so many ways. But the problem is not that. The problem is that do you have any boundaries at all? So just because there's a pandemic, we cannot say that our addictions and that we've now gotten addicted because of the pandemic and that it's all right because we had no other way out. So let me give you a simple example of things that can be done. There are offline activities and choices that you can make. For instance, does all your entertainment, including your reading, have to happen on a screen? Or can you actually take time off the screen where you say, okay, even if I'm reading, which is a great thing to do, I'm going to read a physical book rather than be on my gadget again to be reading that. Or if there's a game, for instance, parents, it's also very, it's frustrating to be bound in a house. You do want to say, okay, if the child is busy on the device, let them be. But it needs a little more effort to say if the child needs to be occupied, for instance, and is occupied on an online game, can we instead shift it to a board game? Can we actually spend physical time without technology to do that? So there are many ways where you can create little pockets of non-tech time in your day, no matter what the conditions around may be and how much connectivity you need. Everybody can have those little spaces in a day which are essential
Actually,
for your
you're
brain.
right. I mean, I would agree with you here because It's also the easy route we are taking, right, as parents as well. It's about, okay, there's a gadget and it's easy to play games on this, but it's our lethargy or inertia, where we don't take out that extra time or effort anymore.
Or even for our own self, right? Like if you're yourself on a gadget all the time, then obviously the child is going to follow suit and will also be on a gadget all the time. So it really starts with being a little mindful.
This is scary, huh? Now that I'm visualizing a lot of things right now while we are talking, and it looks like a scary world. I'm glad that you're doing something in this space, and it's much required, Bindya. And I think while you were talking, it also made me think that it's also about mindfulness, right? I mean, even only if you're mindful, you'll know when to switch off from the virtual world and come back to the real world, right? The difference between the two and the merits and the demerits of both. So, essentially, it is mindfulness.
Yeah, because see, the whole idea of mindfulness is that we become more aware of everything that we're doing rather than walking through it just like a zombie on auto mode. And a lot of us tend to do that. And I would think majority of us, at least for big swaths of time in the day, we are working on auto mode. We are not being aware of our thoughts. We're not being aware of our feelings. We're not being mindful, so to say. And that's the whole practice of mindfulness is based on that how do you notice and be aware of your thoughts and feelings without passing judgment? Because first you have to just observe them and say, what am I doing? So if I'm sitting with you, for instance, in a room, am I actually talking to you, or while talking to you I'm also fidgeting with my gadget alongside, even though nothing really urgent is going to pop up on it? So if I notice that, if I'm mindful of that, then I can do something and say that when I'm engaging with someone in a conversation, let me at least put my device aside unless there's something very urgent to do on that. So these are just small things, but you have to notice them by being mindful, of course, and only that's what the audit is about, right? So you have to do an audit of what are you consuming, how are you consuming, what out of that is necessary, what is something which has just become an auto response for you, just a comfort response, or just like an addiction for you. And once you do that audit, is when you can start seeing what is important and what do you do about the stuff which is not so important in terms of your dependence on technology or your addiction, whatever the case may be.
So I can clearly see. I think you have a process, and it's not only like a one-time workshop which you're doing with your students. Is the sense I'm getting. You have a work plan for them, right? How to break these habits, how to build new neuro patterns, whatever it's called. And I also read something about Jomo breaks. Is that linked to digital detox again?
It is absolutely. So, JOMO breaks are really like so. FOMO is the fear of missing out, and JOMO is the joy of missing out. So, how do you convert the fear of missing out and make it transition into the joy of missing out, where you are not constantly thinking about what is happening somewhere else? What's my friend doing on Insta? What's my friend doing sitting somewhere else? Let me talk to them, or let me take every moment that I'm experiencing and upload it somewhere or send it to someone in the form of a picture or something. So it's about being mindful and being present in the moment that you're experiencing without technology. It's about taking a break from technology and focusing on the real world rather than the virtual world, looking inwards, reflecting, making connections outside, be it with people who are around you. Not they don't even have to be friends. They could be anybody, maybe even somebody you meet on a village walk or somebody you're noticing sitting across you, and making connect with nature. But most of all, reconnecting with your own inner self first, which again is something we don't have much time to do because we use our devices like little adult pacifiers. Anytime there's some discomfort, boredom, anything, we just quickly grab the device and that's our pacifier.
Is the 2 a.m. friend in 2021? Yeah.
Yeah, it's the 2 a.m., 4 a.m., and every other AM, PM friend that you
This
can think of.
conversation also reminds me of that movie, Matrix.
Yeah,
Yeah, the blue pill or the red pill, virtual life or
yeah,
real life.
absolutely.
Which one do you want to
Hmm.
pop? So, yeah,
Yeah, we're getting very close to those pills, though, I have to
yeah,
say.
yeah. It's and in last 1 year, and I think in my experience also, when I have taken mindfulness sessions, I've just seen people are much more aware of their mental health more than what they were year and a half, 2 years
Yeah.
ago. But at the same time, this entire unrest about pandemic, because of pandemic, I think it's just seeping in organizations. It's seeping in in our friend circle. I can see a lot more awareness, but not too many tools being deployed to come out of that anxiety and stress. And it's really nice that what you're doing, because much more is required in this space now, especially what we are going through at the moment. Coming to unstoppable as a theme, Bindya, with all this digital detox, stresses, tensions, anxieties we are talking about, the question I'm posing at you is, how can a person be unstoppable in the midst of a global pandemic?
The thing is, a lot of times we pay attention only to things which are very outward, such as it could be our physical health, it could be our work, it could be what dynamics we share with people outside, but we spend very, very little time actually building resilience and emotional hygiene for ourselves. Now, on an average, there is nobody who spends less than 15 minutes a day on physical hygiene. Let's say brushing your teeth, bathing, dressing up, looking at yourself in the mirror, all of that. 15 minutes is the minimum we spend. Now, first and foremost, if we cultivate 15 minutes of emotional hygiene, if we include that in our day to day life, then when things get really tough, we're already in a better headspace, we're in a better emotional and mental space to be able to tackle adversity. So, the very first thing I would say is that everyone should really spend some time cultivating emotional hygiene for themselves in the good times so that when the times are not so good, you're already equipped to handle them better. Then there is something that I believe very strongly in, which is the arc of living, which is the ARC, that we have to learn in this world if we want to survive and flourish through all the craziness which is happening and will continue to happen, then we need to be very, very highly adaptable. We need to be resilient and we need to be creative. And I'm not talking about creative in terms of, painting pots and pans and all of that, but creative in coming up with ideas and solutions which are needed at that moment, or creative in our problem solving ability. So that is another thing I think everyone needs to cultivate. Those three are like the trinity of good mental health: adaptability, resilience, and creativity. Then the other thing I would say to do is that you need to have a goal and you need to have a timeline for whatever goals that you've got, and you need to have a plan B, because in these days you may have one goal. Because of the way things are, it could change so rapidly. You could lose your job, you could not find a job, maybe the profession you want to go into is not flourishing anymore. Have a goal, have a timeline, and always have a plan B. I think those are very important things in these days, of pandemic and change and everything being so unpredictable. So those are some of, I would say, those are sort of like the bedrock foundational pieces that can see us through all these phases that we are going through at the moment across the world.
Very nicely put, Bindya. And I've always seen, that one can take adversity as, as a downfall in one's life, or it can actually be something which moves to transformation. You know, so every junction in one's life where there it seems like, okay, this is the end. I can't carry on any further. That can be the moment where you can transform and become something even better. It's like that, butterfly effect. you 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 evolve into something better and a better version of yourself. So I guess that's what you're saying with all these practices, mindfulness techniques, which you teach. One can really achieve that unstoppable attitude towards life. But what about women? Women generally do get stuck with these identities and roles, which is the reason why we started the show in the first place. How do we guide women to come out of that and still live their dreams, find their mojo, and not lose their identities? Would mindfulness help navigate that?
Yes, mindfulness can very much help navigate that, but I think there are also some other very essential things that women need to really pursue in their life, because let's be honest about it, this world is not designed to be fair to women. A lot is happening. We're trying to make it a fairer, slightly more balanced world, but we're still a long way from it. So if you look at, the balance right now, the power still rests with the men. And in countries like ours, which are so patriarchal, we see patriarchy cut across board in our personal and in our professional lives. Now, the things that you can do is that first and foremost, you should value education as the most important thing. If you're a mother and you have a girl child, you make sure that whatever is in your power, you do that to educate that child. If you're already in some sort of a position as a young person, as a young woman, to pursue your education, be it through whatever means of loans or cajoling your parents to do it, whatever it may be, educate yourself, get some skill sets which can make you employable, or which can make you at least stand on your own feet, whether you're employable by someone else or self employed. Because financial independence is extremely important. There is nothing that can flip where your life goes as much as financial independence can. And that unfortunately just is a fact. Then, in order to go somewhere and to be able to carve and, have some sort of a space which is just your own, you also need to have clarity of your own thoughts and belief in your own thoughts. It's very easy to get swayed by ideas of people about what a woman's role is, how she should be, till when she should pursue a career, if she should, and what that should look like, and when she should give it up for the sake of, let's say, family or whatever else. And while it's fine to do that, it should be the decision of the woman, not of the family. And for that, you need to have clarity of thought, you need to have self belief, and you need to be clear about your own goal. What is it that you want your life to look like? So you need to take out time from the time you're a young person to think about it. And as women, we need to really foster these conversations. We need to have more such conversations with young women whose minds are still extremely malleable. We need to open their minds to these ideas, and girls should be given as much exposure as possible to thoughts, to ideas, to different cultural influences, and so on. So I think all those things are really, really important, because without that, if you just talk about mindfulness for women at large or young girls at large, while that's a wonderful practice, but in isolation, that will not do anything for them.
Do you have any specific workshops for women or young women,
Yes, I
teenagers?
do. In fact, I work with, sometimes I'm working with schools, with high school students, and so on. I do a lot of workshops with women, and the topics really range, like I was saying earlier, on so many different self-development, issues. So it's about whether it is about how do I find my flow, or how do I find my passion, or how do I just find independence, or how do you cultivate enough confidence, how do you improve self-esteem to be able to foster independent thought. So there are a whole mix of, different workshops.
Any insights you want to share from the workshop? What challenges do these young girls face? What are the inhibitions?
I think the biggest challenge really goes back to the whole patriarchal attitude that people have towards girls at large. And what happens is that, for instance, look at gender bias. It starts from home. There are different rules, expectations, different education given, freedoms given, privileges given to a girl and a boy. So girls get exposed to this from a very young age. And this obviously also spreads into the largely male dominated workplaces, where there's gender bias in hiring, where there's pay disparity, personal questions about marriage, about maternity. There's so much harassment that happens. And some of it is, microaggression. You cannot even call it out. It's microaggression that happens at work, or it's sometimes very covert, hostile work cultures where women are not taken to very well. Sometimes there's sexual harassment. And women actually come and talk about this all the time in these workshops, because these are very real issues. And women have to deal with them on a day to day basis. And then one thing that comes up over and over again is the fact that Okay, I managed to get that education. I went to a good college. I did whatever I needed to do. But the expectation was still that I will do something moderately professional till I get married and only till such time, or at best till I have a child. And then I'm expected to abandon all my dreams and ambitions and just do nothing else except what my family expects me to do. There is such duplicity and double standards in that it's very disheartening for a lot of young women who don't necessarily want to go down that path, but they feel too pressured to go any other way. So they go in the flow of that, and their life just gets dictated by what others want them to be. So they can never be the full version of whatever they want to be. And these are some of the huge challenges. As well as, one thing I must point out is, for working women, it is so hard, because no matter what hours you're keeping, no matter what the amount of pressure it is that you face in your workday, women are still largely expected to come and run the house and manage the children without too much effort from their partner, their male partner, husband, that is usually. And this really means that you're doing a full day's job. Before you go for the job, you're taking care of everything that needs to be done on the domestic front. Then you come back tired, you get no downtime. Then again, you're doing everything that's needed for everyone else. And it creates burnout, it creates stress, anxiety.
And this is universal. This is across the globe, what you're saying. Yeah.
This is this is across the globe, but I would think, specifically in a lot of developing countries, and specifically in India also, the woman is just really expected to be some sort of a superhuman who should not have any downtime at all. A man will come back, put his feet up, pour a drink, or go for a game of golf or watch TV. But a woman is supposed to come back, throw her laptop, go running to the kitchen, fix everything, teach the kids, fix the house, while the man is just the one who seems to be getting the downtime. And also, between a choice about who has to give up a career, it's always the woman who's expected to give it up, not the man.
Yeah, precisely why we started this podcast, Bindya. There's so much left to be done in this space. For women and women to get inspired from, people around, and like yourself, what you've done in your life. You've been so successful in your career. And at the same time, you have pursued your passion, and also you're giving back to the society, giving back, now what you're working for this, in the space of women empowerment. I think this is such an enriching conversation, honestly, also because it gives a deep insight to what's really happening, why women are wearing these multiple identities, yet not able to follow their heart, not able to follow their dreams. And I really, through this show and this podcast, I really want more and more women to get inspired by guests like yourself. It's been really interesting, Bindia, talking to you. And anything you want to share with our listeners, specifically about, your programs, meditation and retreats?
Well, as far as the programs are concerned, the only thing I'd like to say is that, if you want to know more, please feel free to go to my website, which is healinghideaway.in. And I'm there online, more on Insta than any other online platform, really, as life coach Bindiya Murgai. So that's one part of it. But more than that, I mean, that is something where if you're facing any mental issue, emotional issue, I would, strongly urge, not that you specifically have to reach out to me, but what I would really want to tell everyone out there who's listening right now is that please do not treat your mental health as something that you should be ashamed of. If you have a stomach ache, a headache, a backache, and you're not ashamed to go to the doctor for that, you're not ashamed to sit at a party and tell someone that you've got a stomach bug, you should not be ashamed if you have any sort of a mental issue. Because just like our physical health, which has ups and downs and which is a continuum of good phases and bad phases, so is our mental health. So, firstly, please don't discriminate against your mind. Please don't scoff or make fun or look down upon people who are talking about their mental health or going through a bad period of mental health. And also, very importantly, as women, I really think it's about time that all women started getting up and being more vocal and more proactive in their support of other women's struggles, of, appreciating them, supporting them rather than kind of putting them down. And as a woman, whatever impact you can make, not only if you have a daughter, but even more importantly, if you have a son, you are responsible to a great extent to how that boy in this world is going to grow up treating other women. You are responsible as a mother to teach your boy how women should be treated as equals with respect. So you have a big responsibility there, which I think every woman should really try her best to fulfill through example as well as through leadership in the role of a parent, because that's what parents are. We are leaders as parents. So be a good leader, because you're responsible for changing the world literally with every child that you're raising. So that's pretty much what I want to say, Shailja. And also that it's really, really very commendable that along with doing all the other work that you do in your corporate life, with your training as a mindfulness practitioner, that you are still managing to take out time to create a platform like this where you can open, kind of create more exposure, a platform for women to get more exposure about thought and perhaps more dialogue. When they listen to stuff like this, maybe it inspires different people to have more dialogues about different topics that you discuss. And that is really, really fantastic. So, congratulations. Really, hats off for that.
Thank you, Bindia. Thank you. We just want this voice to go far and wide. And, we wish you all the best for your mission.
Thank you so
And I've
much.
been watching you all these years, and you have a fan in me.
Oh, and
I,
likewise, Shailja.
it's so it's like, what you are doing is something which I always aspired to do. Just leave corporate life and just get head over heels in love with my pursuits of mindfulness and meditation. I think it just might happen one day.
Well, as long as you
But
keep it there as a goal, it'll happen.
yeah,
Don't put it off.
yeah.
Keep a timeline, because without a timeline, a goal is just a dream.
Okay, I'm going to take this as a big takeaway today. I'm I'm going to meditate over this.
Yes,
But I
please.
wish you all the best, Bindia. Lovely
Thank
talking
you
to
so
you.
much.
Lovely
And to
talking.
you too,
Thank you so
Shailja.
much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Join us again next week for more inspirational stories from unstoppable women.